Hello, and welcome to the Moms Love Coaching Podcast, where we talk about self-care from the inside out for moms. I'm your host, Carrie McFarland, along with Angie Turgeon-Ledoux. We are certified life coaches and moms, and in this podcast, we'll go beyond the take a spa day advice and talk about real and sustainable ways that you can feel better, be happier, and stay out of overwhelm and burnout. You spend your life taking care of everyone else. In this podcast, each week, it's all about you taking care of you with no guilt and no apologies. We're so happy that you've decided to spend this time with us, so go ahead and grab your favorite cup of coffee, find a comfortable place, and get ready to spend the next 30 minutes focusing on the most important person in your life, you. Welcome, everybody, to Self-Care from the Inside Out. This is Carrie McFarland and Angie Turgeon-Ledoux.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
What have you done this weekend? What have you done?
What have I been doing? I went for a lovely walk yesterday, and it's this local mountain, and they've done a lot of trail work. So the trails are really nice and, not super steep, which will impact me. I do have a knee that has some arthritis in it, but it's very empowering when you can. We climbed all the way up it and back down. It's maybe an hour hike, at a leisurely pace, not like we're hoofing it the whole time. By the time I got down at the bottom, my knee was screaming at me to sit down. But, I had to help it get in the car with me because it didn't want to come into the car.
Come on, knee.
Come on. I literally have to pick it up and put it in the car. We went to have dinner and then we came home. It was so lovely. I mean, we met maybe a handful of folks. It was like the ideal time to be going up. It's springtime in Vermont and the leaves are that lacy, you can still see the light through them. The clouds were stunning and dramatic and it wasn't too cold, but it wasn't too hot. Just really great hiking weather. And part of me wants to go back today, even though it's raining.
We have a mountain like that near us. Well, sort of near us. It's in New Hampshire, but it's probably just about an hour away from where we live. And when my daughter was in Taekwondo, they used to take a group of them every spring to climb that mountain, Mount Monadnock. It was a nice trail until you got to a certain point, and then all of a sudden it was like a 90-degree angle with all these rocks. And I was like,
yep.
What? I like the nice, easy trails.
Yes.
I don't need to prove anything to myself. I just want to walk. I just want to walk in the woods, even just we have actually a flat trail near our house, the rail trail. And that's a nice walk. And if you walked the whole thing, it would be about 5 miles. That's a nice trail. It's just flat and that's it. And it's just pretty. That's all I need. Flat and pretty.
I need to find balance between how much walking I can do before I need to sit and how long I need to sit in order for that knee just to get, some room, some space around it.
I went to a play this weekend. I went to see To Kill a Mockingbird at the theater near our house in Worcester. It was amazing. Richard Thomas, for those of you who know who he was a star in the 70s and 80s. So we're dating ourselves, but it was pretty cool that he was the lead. He played Atticus in the play. He did a good job. It wasn't, for those of you who know the book, it wasn't a pure representation of Atticus. So I'm not gonna lie, I struggled with that a little bit. It was still very, very good. One of the things that I always liked about that character is his evenness. He didn't really ever get riled up. He was very thoughtful about what he said. He listened maybe more than he spoke. He responded to things instead of reacted to things. I've always been very drawn to that character. That character has kind of been my horizon. Like he's the one that I kind of try to strive for. I aspire to be like him. I'm not there yet.
It's a journey.
It's a long journey. But he's sort of my horizon. So for those of you who don't know the book, the premise of the book is that Atticus is a lawyer and he defends a Black man in the 30s in a very small town in the deep, deep South. So there's lots of controversy about the trial, and his kids are exposed to people acting towards them in a way that is very mean and intimidating and threatening. The way that he handles those situations is, again, something I strive for. I would love to be able to respond to those things in that type of way. If my kids come to me and they feel that they have been wronged, or they feel intimidated, or somebody said something to them that wasn't very nice and maybe even ignorant, I didn't always handle those things well. Surprise, surprise. If you listen to this podcast, you know that I have a problem with reacting versus responding. My default is to kind of fly off the handle and get angry and just react, and not at my child, but just about the situation, because they're feeling like they've been wronged. So then I feel that, and my mama bear comes out. So trying to be aware of when that is happening and thinking about, okay, what exactly am I thinking in this moment? Because she just told me something, either she had a problem with her teacher in the beginning of the year. So it wasn't even just my child, it was kind of the whole class. But when my child asked about it, then it became directed at her. And so I reacted to that. I responded to that in a way as if I needed to fix it. I needed to be angry about it. I needed to make sure that she felt a certain way and let her, instead of just letting her feel her feelings. I've really been trying to think about what it is that's going on in my head, because sometimes the situation and the thought and the feeling and the action kind of all happen together. And so I'm trying to slow that process down and think to myself, okay, I'm feeling triggered right now. What is happening for me? What exactly am I thinking? Do you have that, Angie? Do you try to slow yourself down? I mean, we react to things in different ways, but
I mean, this work that we've been embarking on for the last several years certainly helps build that awareness. It really does feel like your brain is hijacked, and then you're like, who is this coming out of my mouth? Like, this is not the person I want to be. I am upset, and then I am talking crap. I got an urgency, that sense of urgency, and that, oh my gosh, I need to fix it right now. And being aware that you have this thing that sort of takes you over, and then your actions are not in alignment with really who you want to be.
I think the sense of urgency is the key. If you're feeling that sense of urgency to jump in and fix something, I think that's a sign that you're being triggered and maybe not thinking quite as clearly as you might be thinking if you gave it some time.
Right.
That's that reacting versus responding. And the difference is that reacting is your default, and responding is when you take that second to think about what it is that your thought actually is, and then to feel what you're feeling, rather than jumping right into, I need to do something to change this, which is where I think most people go right away. So if we think about, we've talked about the model before, there's circumstances that happen which are neutral, and then we have thoughts about those circumstances, and then we have feelings related to that thought, and then we take action based on that feeling, and then we create the result. In my case, when my kids come to me with things like that, my thought is usually something along the lines of, they shouldn't have to be going through this. They shouldn't have to be suffering like this. It's not always exactly that, but I think that's pretty much the core thought, is that they shouldn't have to be suffering like that. And then the tag on thought to that is, I can't let this happen. it immediately evokes anxiety, urgency, fear. All those feelings come up. Usually what happens, and again, all this happens in an instant, but usually what happens is I take all of those feelings and then I bundle them into anger.
Wrap them up with a nice, pretty little red bow of anger.
Wrap them all up. Now they're in anger, and I take action from there, which feels like it's the right thing in the moment.
Then it has the opposite. It's not the right thing because you're trying to support your kiddo, and then what happens? You act like that.
Yes. And now I'm causing them anxiety, and I'm causing them fear because my reaction is so over the top. So now they have the circumstance of whatever happened. In my example, it was school, but it can be anything. And they have the circumstance of me reacting in an irrational, reactive way that's probably pretty aggressive because I am angry, right? Not towards them, but even they're just seeing it and feeling it and experiencing it. My thought of they shouldn't suffer, my result is that I'm causing them to suffer by acting that way. So it really just circles right back around. When you're not aware, when you're working on your default, that's normally what happens is you actually create the situation that you're trying to avoid. We all do this. It's a default for a reason because it's kind of human nature to do that. You have to be aware and conscious about what it is that you're thinking and how you're feeling so you can respond to that. But what most people do is they just let it happen. That's what I used to do. I would just let it happen. And then instead of fixing something, I would create this whole new situation that now I would feel like I need to fix, because then I'd say, oh no, now they're upset about that. And now I have to fix that. And like the whole thing would happen again. And I would just be in this spiral of that shouldn't happen. And the fear and anxiety and anger, and then acting on that, and then just creating that situation over and over and over. That's one type of your kid suffering or struggling. I mean, when your kid struggles, you struggle. That's just how it works.
And I think that's what we're here to talk about, whether or not that has to be true.
Right. Exactly.
Because when our child is struggling, you want to fix it for them. You don't want them to struggle. But also if you have awareness of that and you recognize that you don't want your kiddo to struggle that way, but you recognize, having gone through it myself, at various stages in my development, that part of coming to terms with that is part of growing up and part of becoming a full, complete human, that the struggle, life is 50-50, right? Life is struggle sometimes. Developing the skills and the awareness and knowing who you can go to, who your supports are when you're struggling, is a skill set. That's, as a parent, it's our responsibility to try to help our child develop that as best they can. And if we're struggling with their struggle, it's like we have to develop and improve that skill set in ourselves while we're raising them and trying to help them get through their struggle. So it's like, I have the benefit of hindsight now. I have a little distance from that. One of the coaches that I work with teaches, look at the problem, identify the problem, know what the problem is so that you can see where the opportunity is. Where's the opportunity in this problem too? And a lot of times in the work that we've done, it has something to do with how I'm thinking about this. Like, it's my job to keep my child from suffering. I don't want my child to be in pain. That brings out every mama bear instinct in us.
Which is, it makes perfect sense too. It makes perfect sense that would be the go-to thought is, oh no, not my kid. My kid is not suffering like that.
And how dare they?
And how dare they? And how dare this? And yes, exactly. I think that the suffering is part of it. We can't, when I think back to the different things that I have gone through that have been really difficult to get through, on the other side of that, you realize that there is growth. And the only way to get to that growth is to go through whatever it is that you're going through. You can't go around it. There's no shortcut, because if you don't go through it, either going to come back or you're just going to be going through it so slowly that you think it's never going to end. You have to go through it. And our kids are the same way. It's just, it's harder, I think, because as moms, we've been conditioned that you take care of your kids no matter what. And part of taking care of them is making sure that they don't ever suffer, or they don't have negative emotions, or they don't experience horrible things. But the truth is, you have no control over that.
Yeah.
And it's actually part of their journey to go through difficult things so they can grow and get stronger too. The part I think moms have to understand is that watching them go through that and not trying to make it better is really hard.
I think it takes a lot of that self-awareness we're talking about, knowing that, especially if you have some unresolved things from your own childhood. So it's developing that awareness. What about the situation is really hitting home with me in terms of the way that things I've experienced, the way others have treated me, for example, what life circumstance life has handed me when I was growing up.
So my daughter has been in therapy, and during one of the times that we brought up to the therapist, like, we just don't know what to do when she is so upset, because she would get so upset about things, so upset. We wanted to know what to do to make it better for her. We wanted to be able to put her through that and do something, right? We wanted to do something, right? The way she explained it to us was, there's really not anything you can do to make it stop or go away. She needs to experience it and go through it, because that's how she's working it out. And your job is to be, she's like, think of it as the bumper things in the bowling alley. Right?
Yeah.
Your
create
job,
the container, so that the feeling, because I'm sure when that emotion is working out of her, that it's scary.
Right.
I imagine the first time that she was conscious that was happening was like, I'm going to lose it and never come back.
Yeah. But when she said that to us, it made it so clear. It was like, okay, we're just making sure that she stays in the lane so she can actually get all the way down and get through it. And that's it. And that's all we needed to do. We weren't trying to stop the ball or, hit the strike for her, or, she had to do it. We just had to be there to kind of hold her and make sure that she was going down the path. So I really liked that analogy. And when she said that, it made it really clear to me what my role was in those situations. And so I've tried to apply it to different situations, really trying to focus on what would be the most helpful for her. Is it me having the thought that she shouldn't be going through this and I need to fix it, and then I come with all my anger, anxiety, energy to try to fix it and kind of blow it up into something else? Or is it she's going through something hard right now, and having my feeling be more empathy and having reactions from that, or not reactions, but my responses based on those emotions, so it would look more like, that sounds really hard. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. Right. Is there anything that I can do? Is there a way how can I help you? Do you want a hug? Things like that. Things that support, rather than, quite honestly, what I was doing before is really focusing on myself. Yeah. In my own anxiety and how to fix my own anxiety. And the way to fix my own anxiety was to feel like I was fixing hers or to think that I was fixing hers by what I was
Mhm.
doing, but I was really just making it worse.
Mhm.
So shifting the focus from myself to what she needs made a big difference in the way that I thought about it,
Mhm.
that whole process.
Mhm. In one of my previous jobs, I worked a lot with kids who would get completely dysregulated. And when they're dysregulated, they're not in their prefrontal cortex, they're not in the front of their brain, they're down in the base brain and they're in survival mode. When we take care of ourselves, taking care of ourselves in that moment when our kids are struggling is one of the best gifts that we can give them because we are showing them how to take care of themselves.
I think that's why it's important. See your kid do the same behavior at home, like you said, being dysregulated, crying, screaming, having a fit, whatever you want to call it. But then that happens in a different setting with maybe a teacher around or a therapist around or a doctor around or something like that. And the way that they respond to it versus the way that you respond to it, it's because they're not emotionally attached the way that you are. They don't. So the same thing is happening, but they don't have the same thoughts that you do. Things like, I need to fix this, or this kid shouldn't be suffering.
This is my responsibility.
This is my responsibility.
Yeah.
Right. It's my fault that this is happening. Right.
That's right. I'm not a good parent if,
right.
All those rules we have for ourselves.
But their thought is probably more along the lines of, this kid is struggling right now. And I'm just going to let them struggle, and it's not coming from a mean place. It's just they can see it for what it is. And we place all these labels on it and then make it our fault. And that's where I think the struggling, when your kid is struggling, comes from, is that you feel so responsible, which means that you have to fix it. And I guess what we're saying is, you don't need to fix it. In fact, fixing it actually does the opposite of what you think it will do. Kids do need to struggle sometimes with different things that they go through so they can learn, grow, and evolve just like we do. And our job is to be there to show empathy, answer questions, give them a hug, tell them it'll be okay, just
be the bumper guards. Be the bumper guards.
The bumper guards, yes. Be the bumper guards. All right. So this month our theme is getting through hard things. There's a live coming up next week on May 11th. And there'll be a link in the show notes if you want to go to that. So check that out. But this is our theme this month, getting through hard things. And this is the first one that we came up with, struggling when your kid is struggling, because that is hard. That is a hard thing to get through. So we have all the empathy in the world for you around that. You're doing great.
And it is a muscle. It is a muscle that you practice, and it gets stronger with practice. So the lovely thing about life is it gives you many opportunities to practice.
It does. It gives you many opportunities to practice. So keep practicing. Keep practicing.
Keep practicing.
You're doing good. All right. We'll see you next week, everybody. Hey moms, I want to tell you about the free live event that I'll be hosting on Saturday, May 11th at 10 a.m. Eastern. It's all about the secrets to getting through hard things. I'm putting this together because I know that life comes at you when you least expect it, and let's face it, it's probably you who does the sacrificing to make sure that everyone else is taken care of. In this live, I will tell you the number one most important thing you need to know so you can take care of yourself and your family when the you-know-what hits the fan, and do it in a way that doesn't make you feel burnt out and resentful. You can sign up through the link in the show notes. I've made it super easy, and did I mention that it's free? There's one last thing I want to say before you go. I want you to know that you are the most important person in your life and your family's life. You deserve to take this time to invest in yourself. All right, I'll see you there. Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to us if you like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. This makes it easier for everyone to find us and helps us spread our message about self-care from the inside out. Have a wonderful week, and remember, making yourself the priority is the highest form of self-care.